Good afternoon, students.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. In last class, we were discussing about the tutorial sheet 8, and I believe first question we have covered.
Yes, sir.
Now, now, next is the question number 3. Let us start today class with question number 3. There are 40 students in an elementary statistics class. On the basis of years of experience, the instructor knows that time needed to grade a randomly chosen first examination paper is random variable with an expected value of 6 minutes and standard deviation of 6 minutes. So here the question is means to check one student or to grade one student, examiner is taking on an average 6 minute time and standard deviation is also 6 minutes. So main thing to note here, when we represent the standard deviation, it means unit of the mean and the standard deviation, and the standard deviation will be the same whatever the unit of the random variable. Now in the part A, they are asking if grading times are independent to each other. Instructor begins the grading at 6:50 p.m. and grades continuously. In the evening he started the job, and what is the approximate probability that he is through grading, means he complete the grading before the 11 p.m. TV news begin. Means one news is beginning by the 11 o'clock, 11:10, right? By 11 o'clock. So, what is the probability that he can finish his job before the news start? So, what the information we have? We have total number of students. So, total number of student is given to you. N is equal to 40, and mean is given to you as a 6 minute, and standard deviation as a 6 minute. So starting time is given to you 6:50 p.m. So getting grading before 11 p.m. 11 p.m. means the total time will be the 11 p.m. minus 6:50. That is the 250 minutes. Now we define the new random variable. Let T naught. T naught is the sum of total time taken. Total time taken for grading. So x1 plus x2 plus x40 for all the students. Since since the xi are independent here, since it is given to you, all the grading time for all students are independent. Xi's are independent. Then mean of t naught, mean of the sum of the random variable will be the sum of the mean of random variable. So it will become n mu. So 40 into 6, that is the 240 minutes. Similarly, standard deviation. So for the standard deviation, or before the standard deviation, you can say variance for the 40 student will be the n into variance of each student. Variance of each student. So standard deviation will become 40 into root of sigma. Root 40 into sigma, means sigma into root n. So sigma dot or into root of the 40. So sigma is given to you 6 into root 40, that is the 37.95. Not what we want our grading should be completed before the 250 minutes. So probability T naught must be less than equal to 250. And it is asked that it should follow the approximate probability we have to determine. So by using the central limit theorem, we can convert any distribution into the standard normal distribution by subtracting the mean and divide by the standard deviation. So here z minus x t naught minus mu means this z bar will be what? It is the t naught minus mu upon sigma, right? Means mu for t naught, sigma for t naught. So this will be the z. So z less than equal to 250 minus 240 upon 37.98. So on solving, you will get it is 0.26 and tabular value is for 6026 from table. From table, if you will see, so this value will be the 0.6026. So this is the chance, this is the probability, this is the likelihood, right? That examiner can finish the work before the 11 o'clock. Thereafter, in part B, if the sport reports begin at 11:10 p.m., what is the probability that he misses the part of the report if he waits until grading is done before tuning the TV? Now he is interested to listen the sport news that start with the 11:10. It means he now he when he is tuning, then he missed the little part of the sport news. It means time taken for grading will be more than the 260 minutes. Means 11:10 means the 260 minutes. So t naught must be greater than 260. So probability of the t naught greater than 260. So again, using the central limit theorem, it can be written as P of Z greater than 260 minus 250 upon 37.95. That is the Z greater than 0.53. So required probability will be the 0.2981. So this much is the probability with which he can miss the some part of the news.
Sir, won't we write 1 minus something to get T naught less than equal to?
No, no, it is the same thing, na? It is the same thing, na? 1 minus P of Z less than minus of 0.53. Either you say like
Okay.
this,
Okay.
because a normal distribution is what? It is the symmetric about the mean. So either you compute this side area or you compute this side area. Both are the same thing, na?
Okay, sir.
Now, let us move to question number 4. A binary communication channel transmits sequence of bits, means 0 and 1. There is the communication line. You know, we can communicate only in binary digit. Suppose that for any particular bit transmitted, there is 10% chance the transmission error, that is 0 become 1 or 1 become 0. Assume that bit error occurs independently of one another. Consider transmitting 100 bits. What is the approximate probability that at most 125 transmission error occurs? So here question is, let us first define. Always you have to define the event and random variable. In midsem exam, there are so many copies. Means we can say around 70% copies where students have not defined the random variable or event. It is very necessary to define the event or random variable. So then if you are defining the random variable, then you have to specify which distribution it is following. Otherwise, question is incomplete. Let x be number of errors, erroneous bit out of the 1000 bits. So this says that x follow the binomial distribution with parameter n is equal to 10, n is equal to 1000 and p is equal to 0.10. P is given to you, there is a 10% chance of erroneous message. Means there is a 10% chance that bit will be transmitted wrongly. So if we approximate by the normal approximation, so we have to apply the normal approximation. You know, when we apply the normal approximation, distribution, it is equal to NP. So 1000 into 0.10, that is 100, and 100 errors, and sigma square is equal to NPQ 1000 into 0.10 into 0.90, that is the 90. So what is the ask? At most 125 error. So here it will become the probability x less than equal to 125. So after adding the half unit correction, it will become probability x1 less than equal to 125.5. Now on both side, if you do minus mu upon sigma, it will become the z. So that is the normal approximation. Normal approximation. It is given to you. You have to determine the approximate probability, because for the n is equal to 1000, table is not available. So you have to apply the normal approximation with half unit correction. With half unit correction. So this will become probability z less than equal to 125.5 minus 100 upon root of 90. So on solving, this will become probability of the z less than equal to 2.69, that is 0.9964. From the table, if you will see this value, you will get the required probability. So that is the first part. Now, in the second part, suppose the same 1000-bit message is sent two different times independently of one another. Means there are the repetition of the job and both job are independent to each other. What is the approximate probability that number of errors in the first transmission is within 50 of the number of errors in the second? Means whatever the number of errors in second, right? For the first, it is plus 50 or minus 50, in the range of the plus 50 or minus 50. So let us denote number of errors in the second communication. So again, y also follow the binomial distribution with the same parameter n is equal to 1000, p is equal to 0.0, and it is given to you x and y are now independent. Now they are saying that the difference between these number of errors in the first communication and in the second communication not more than 50. So mod of the x minus y less than equal to 50. So here when we compute e of x minus y, so you know that expectation follow the linear property. So e of x minus e of y for the both ex and ey is equal to 100. So 100 minus 100, that is the 0. When we compute the variance of x minus y, so it will be the variance of x plus variance of y. So many times students do the mistake at this point, they write the variance of x minus variance of y. But in case of the variance, we have the minus 1 power 2. So it will become the plus. So variance of x plus variance of y, that is the 90 plus 90, 180. And it can be done when x and y are independent, and it is given to you x and y are independent here. So using the normal approximation, mod of x minus y less than equal to 50 can be written as x minus mu upon sigma. So it will become mod of the z less than equal to 50 minus 0 upon 180. 50 minus 0 upon 180. So left hand side it will become the mod of z less than equal to 3. Something mistake.
So wouldn't it be root 180?
It should be. It should be the
Square
root.
root 1.
Square root of this. Right? It should be the square root of this. So it is the mod of less than equal to 3.73. So it is near to the 1. So that is the required probability. Clear? Let us move to question number 5th. Suppose your waiting time for a bus in morning is uniformly distributed on in the interval 0 to 8, means it is the A, it is B. Whereas waiting time in evening is uniformly distributed over the interval 0 to 10, independent of morning waiting time. Whatever the time you have to wait in morning for the bus, right? Evening waiting time is independent to that. If you take bus each morning and evening for a week, what is your total expected waiting time? Then what is the variance of your total waiting time, and what are the expected value and variance of the difference between morning and evening waiting time of a given day, and what are the expected value of the variance of the difference between the total morning waiting time and total evening waiting time for a particular week. So here we assume that let x1, x2, x5 denote the morning waiting time. We are assuming that Saturday and Sunday is the weekend days. So we are computing for the 5 working days. So the employee is going to office for the 5 working days. Means that we should give this information for how many days we are assuming the week. But here, if it is not given, you please assume it is for the 5 days. But we should specify whether it is a 6-day week or a 5-day week. So x1, x2, x5 denote the morning time, morning waiting time, and x6, x7, x10 means x8, x9, x10 denote the evening waiting time. So you have to compute in the first part expected waiting time for total, whether the evening or morning. So expectation of x1 plus x2 plus x9 plus x10, right? So it will give you expected total waiting time. And x1, all the xi's are independent to each other, and it is given to you x1, x2, x5 follow the uniform distribution, and x6, x7, x10 follow the uniform distribution with parameter 1 and 10. So from here mu will come, right? From here mu will come a plus b by 2. General formula is what? A plus b by 2, that is the 0 plus 8 by 2. 0 plus 8 by 2, that is the 4. Similarly here it will become 0 plus 10 by 2, that is the 5. So expectation of x1 plus x2 plus x10 will be the 5 into expectation of x1 plus 5 into expectation of the x6. So that is the 5 into 4 plus 5 into 5, that is total the 45 minutes, right? So that is the question in the first part. Right? If you take a bus each morning and evening of the week, what is your total expected waiting time? Now, in the B part, what is the variance of your total waiting time? So you know that variance will be what? Variance of x1 plus x2 plus x10 will be the 5 into variance of x1 plus 5 into variance of x means x6. And we know that for the uniform distribution, what is the variance? B minus a whole square by 12. So that is the 8 minus 0 whole square by 12. And for this, it will be the 10 minus 0 whole square by 12. So it will become 5 into 64 upon 12 plus 100 upon 12. So it will be the 820 upon 12. That is the 68.33. Now, in the part C, what are the expected value and variance of the difference between morning and the evening waiting time on a given day? So you can consider any day. So let us take for the first day, that is the x1 and x6. So expectation of the difference between morning and evening waiting time, it will be the E of x1 minus x2. E of x1 minus x2, x1 minus x6, morning and evening time. So E of x1 minus E of x6, because expectation follow linear property. So 4 minus 5, that is the minus 1. So minus 1 denote no waiting, means expected value is coming the no waiting. Then after mean and variance will be the x1 minus x6. X1 minus x6 can be written as v of x1 plus v of x6. That is the 64 upon 12 plus 100 upon 12, or 164 upon 12, that is 13.67. So that is the required mean and variance. Then after, what are the expected value and variance of the difference between total morning waiting time and total evening waiting time for a particular week? So here, so expect means we have to compute the expectation and the variance difference between the total morning and total evening waiting time. So morning time will become x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 plus x5, and evening time will become x6 plus x7 plus x8 plus x9 plus x10. So it will be the 5 into 4 minus 5 into 5, because it follow the linear property. So 20 minus 25, that is the minus 5 minute. Similarly, for the variance, it will be the variance of x1 plus x2 plus x5 minus x6 plus x7 plus x10. So it will be the variance of x1 plus x2 plus x5 plus variance of the x6 plus x7 plus x10. So it will become 5 into 64 upon 12 plus 100 upon 12, that is the 68.33. Let us move to sixth question. Suppose the expected tensile strength of type A steel is 105 KSI and standard deviation of tensile strength is 8 KSI. So mean and standard deviation of tensile of the type A steel is given to you. Suppose the expected tensile strength of this and standard deviation of the tensile strength are 100 KSI and 6 KSI for the second type steel. Let x, a random variable we are defining, or it is the sample. The sample average tensile strength of a random sample of 40 type A specimen, we are taking the sample of size 40, right? And y denote the sample average tensile strength of random sample of size 35 type V specimen. So we are taking the sample of both steel, right, and both steel. So sample size will be the 40 and 35 respectively. What is the approximate distribution of x bar and y bar? Means sample mean. X bar denote here the sample mean. X bar, y bar means we have to compute the distribution of the sample mean. So last time I have told you, when we take the, for example, This is the total production of the type A, right? It is the population. So here we are taking the sample, right? Here we are taking the sample, and each sample of our size 40 means here we have the 40 points. Here we have the 40 point. So in each we have the tensile strength. Let's say x1, x2, x40, x40, right? Here we have the x1, x2, x40. Here we have the x1, x1, x2, x40. So for each we can compute the sample mean. So let's say it is the x1 bar, let's say it is the x2 bar, let's say it is the x3 bar, and we are taking the n sample. So let's say it is the x bar n. So now these are also the random, depending over the sample, these are also the random. That's why we have to compute the distribution of this. So here by the given information, tensile for the tensile type of the given means are given to you as a type A and type B. Mean and variance are given to you 105 and 8 for the type A, 106 for the type B. X bar denote the sample average tensile strength of random sample of 40 type A specimen. So approximate distribution of x bar and y bar is normal using the central limit theorem. We know that with a, for the sufficient large sample from any distribution follow the normal distribution, that is the central limit theorem. Means if n is enough large, if n is enough large, then the sample average we can see whether the sample follow any distribution, but sample average can follow the normal distribution using the central limit theorem.
So how do we decide that the sample is large enough?
Large enough in general in statistics it is the n greater than equal to 25.
Okay.
Then after, what is the approximate distribution of x bar minus y bar? Justify your answer. So we know that x bar minus y bar has approximate normal. The difference of the two random variable is a linear combination of the normal variables. X bar and y bar are the normal variable, and x minus y is nothing. X bar minus y bar is nothing. It is a linear combination of the two normal variable. So, and we know that linear combination of the normal variable also follow the normal distribution. So x bar minus y bar has approximately normal distribution. So when we say normal distribution, always we have to specify with what are the parameters, mean and variance. So mean of x bar minus y bar. So here mean of the x bar minus y bar is given to you. So it will be the 105 minus 100. So it will be the 105 minus 100. So it will be 5 KSI. And standard deviation. So here you know that variance is what? Variance of the A plus variance of the B. Variance of the B. So variance is given to you as a when we are taking the sample of size n. So variance will become here we have the sigma square right upon n, whatever the sample size, plus sigma square upon sample size, that is the 35. So this is the variance of the x bar minus y bar, right? So here it will be the it will give you 1.621 KSI. Then after in part C, calculate approximately that x difference between the tensile strength of the sample average will lie between -1 to 1. So you have to compute required probability is what? Probability x bar minus y bar lie between -1 to 1. So apply the central limit theorem. So when we apply the central limit theorem means minus mu upon sigma. So that will become the z. So -1 minus 5 upon 1.6213, right? 1 minus 5 upon 1.6213, it will become the 3.70 minus 2.47. So from the table, required probability will be the from table. So required probability will become the 0.0068. Any doubt in this part? Now, question number 7. Let x1, x2, x3 represent time necessary to perform 3 successive repair tasks. Means one by one we have to do some repair. So time taken are the x1, x2, x3 random variable tasks at certain service facility. Suppose they are independent and normal random variable with expected value mu1, mu2, mu3 and variance sigma square, sigma 2 square and sigma 3 square respectively. Now in the part A, if mu1 is equal to mu2 is equal to mu3 is equal to 60, sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square plus sigma 3 square is equal to 15. Calculate P of T naught less than equal to 200 and P of T naught lie between 150 and 200. So here T naught is T naught should specify what is the T naught. In the book, it is somewhere written that T naught is nothing. It is the sum of the random variable, right? So, but if we specify in the question, that is the much better. So here it is given to you x1, x2, x3 represent the time necessary to perform the 3 successive repair at a certain service facility. So, and also it is given to you xi follow the normal distribution with parameter mu I and sigma I square. I is equal to 1 to 3. Now, it is asked find the means we are defining the T naught as a sum of the random variable. Means T naught represent total service time, right? It represent the total service time through the 3 process. So expectation of the x1 plus x2 plus x3, expectation follow the linear property. So e of x1 plus e of x2 plus e of x3, that will become the 180 because mu1 plus mu1 is equal to mu2 is equal to mu3 is given to you as a 60 in the part A. And variance of x1 plus x2 plus x3 will be the variance of x1 plus variance of x2 plus variance of x3, that is the 45. Now what we have to compute? We have to compute the probability T naught less than equal to 200. So T naught minus mu upon sigma, that will become Z. So P of the Z less than equal to 200 minus 180 upon root of 45. So probability of the Z less than equal to 2.98. 2.98, that is the 0.9986. See, among the students, we feel that always we have the confusion, what is the sample, what is the population, right? When we have the sample, then we take minus mu upon sigma upon root n. When we have the population, then we take minus mu upon sigma. So if we are doing the sampling, right, if it is given to you, it is a sample, then you have to apply the formula for the sample. When it is not a sample, when it is the population, then you have to apply the formula of the population. So generally we give the information, right? X represent the observation, whatever the observation for the population, and xi we denote that observation for the sample, where I vary from 1 to 40 or 1 to 10, 1 to n means sample size. So please don't confuse between the population and the sample.
Sir, can you explain the difference in the formulas once again?
Actually, when we apply, when x is the population,
Yes, sir.
when x is population, then z will be the x minus mu upon sigma. When xi is the sample, when xi is the sample, at that time x bar is the random variable. X bar is the random variable. X bar is what? It is the sample mean. It is sample mean. So when we apply the central limit theorem, x minus mu upon sigma upon root n, then we have to apply this.
Okay, so then x bar is there, right? Sigma by root n. Okay.
Then we say x bar follow the normal distribution with parameter mu and sigma square upon n. That we are
Okay.
assuming. So means there is always the difference between the population and the sample. Even later on you will see. I think presently you have not, means even in the formula of the formula of variance and mean are different,
Yes, sir.
right? For the sample and for the population.
Yes, sir. Square factor.
Main thing to convey here means always you have to understand what is the population, what is the sample.
Okay, sir. So, sir, currently
Now,
we are dealing with the population, right?
currently I am dealing with the population.
Yes, sir.
Here we have, in the previous part we have considered the, because here we have taken sigma square upon n. So here we are dealing with the sample. That's why we have applied the central limit theorem by using the sample, means sigma square upon n, sigma square upon n.
Yes, sir.
Now in the second part we have to compute T naught lie between 160 to 200. So again apply the central limit theorem or change into the normal. So 160 minus 180 upon root of 95, root of 45, right, less than equal to z less than equal to 200 minus 180 upon root of 45. So from the table this value will come the 0.9986. Now in the part B, using mu I dash and sigma I dash given in part A, calculate both that x bar greater than 55 and x bar lie between 58 and 62. So now x bar, right, now we have the x bar. So mu of x bar, now we are taking from the service time, right? This is the first service time, second service time, third service time. Now here in the first service time we have the record of the various first service time. From there we are taking the sample of size n. We are taking the sample of size n. We are taking the sample of size n. So from there we can have the x bar. From here we have the x bar. From here we have the x bar. So x bar will be the different. X bar will be the different for the different sample. So it is the random, right? Random in nature or random variable. So we know it follows some distribution. So means if the xi follow the normal distribution, then sample mean also follow the normal distribution. That is the theorem. So here mu of x bar will be the same whatever the mu of the population. That is the 60. And standard deviation of the sample is nothing. It is the standard deviation of the population divided by the root of n, whatever the sample size. So it will become root of the 45. It is the 45. So for the first strength it is the 15. Okay, right? It is the root of the 15 upon root of the 3. Means if the x1, x2, x3 we are assuming that they are the sample time. They are the sample time instead of the population. If they are given to, they are the sample time. So it will become the root 3. So 2.236. X bar greater than equal to 55. That is you apply the central limit theorem. So you will get the required probability as a 0.9875. And here, if you take the x bar between the 58 and 62, so it will become the 58 minus 60 upon 2.236 and 62 minus 60 upon 2.236. So the required probability will come 0.6266. Now in part C, using the mu I dash and sigma I dash given in part A, calculate and interpret x1 lie between minus 10 to x1 minus 0.5, x2 minus 0.5, x3 lie between minus 10 to 5. So instead of a simple sum, now we have the linear combination. So we denote that linear combination by the T1. Let T1 is equal to x1 minus 0.5, x2 minus 0.5, x3. So first we have to compute what is the mean. So E of expectation of the T1, that is the expectation of x1 minus 0.5, x2 minus 0.5, x3. It follow the linear property. So E of x1, you know, it is the mu. E of x2 also mu. E of x3 also mu. So it will become mu minus 0.5, 0.5 means 1 minus 0.5, 0.5, that is the 0. And variance of the T1, so variance of the T1 will become variance of x1 plus minus 0.5 whole square, that is the 0.25. Variance of x2 means this can be written as 1 square variance of x1 plus minus 0.5 square variance of x2 plus minus 0.5 square variance of x3. So it will come 22.5. So standard deviation will come root of the 22.5, that is the 4.74. Just now we have to compute whether T1 lie between minus 10 to 5. So apply the central limit theorem. Minus 10 minus 0 upon 4.74 less than equal to z less than equal to 5 minus 0 upon 4.74. So on solving, you will get the required probability as a 0.8357. Then in D part, if U1 is equal to 40, U2 is equal to 50, and U3 is equal to 60, sigma 1 square is equal to 10, sigma 2 square is equal to 12, and sigma 3 square is equal to 14. Calculate P of x1 plus x2 plus x3 less than equal to 160. Also P of x1 plus x2 greater than equal to 2 of x3. Similar type question, only here the mean and variance are given to you different. So if you have to compute that probability of x1 plus x2 plus x3 less than equal to 160, for that we require the value of the expectation of x1 plus x2 plus x3. It follow the linear property. So E of x1, E of x2, E of x3 is given to you as a 40, 50, 60. So total it will become the 150. And variance of x1 plus x2 plus x3, it also follow the linear property. So variance of x1 plus variance of x2 plus variance of x3. From the given information, we have the 10, 12, 14 respectively. So total it will become the 36. So standard deviation of x1 plus x2 plus x3 will be the root of the 36, that is the 6. So now required probability of x1 plus x2 plus x3 less than equal to 160. That so if you do minus mu upon sigma, so it will become the z normal variate. So probability of the z less than equal to 160 minus 150 upon 6. So required probability will be the 0.9525. Now in the last part, what we have to compute? Probability of x1 plus x2 greater than equal to 2x3. So that can be written as x1 plus x2 minus 2x3. So now this is the another random variable. So for this you have to compute the expectation and the variance. So here we have computed the expectation as a minus 30 and variance as a 78. So from the variance we can compute the standard deviation, then apply the central limit theorem, and you will get the required probability as a 0.0003. So hopefully you can do this. For the tutorial sheet 8, we have second part also.
Can you show the last part of this question?
Solution.
Yes, sir. I wasn't able to see.
Just use assume that let T2 is equal to x1 plus x2 minus 2x3. So you compute the E of T2 and variance of T2. And then you compute the probability of T2 greater than equal to 0. Just clear?
Got it, sir. Sir, in between for the part B, we were dealing with the population, right? No, the sample.
Huh.
The part B
Huh.
where divided by root. So this was the sample below. Yeah. So here the sample, when we take the sample average, we will do the root n, right? Always. And otherwise, we are always dealing with the population element. So
Population. Huh.
so we directly do it. Okay, sir.
हाँ एक्चुअली एक मतलब लेक्चर में या तो हुआ होगा या होना होगा भी एक डायरेक्ट थ्योरम है इसके लिए मतलब वो बताता है कि कैसे एक्स बार फॉलो करता है नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन विद पैरामीटर म्यू एंड सिग्मा स्क्वायर अपॉन एन
Yes.
Sir, so that central limit theorem is for n greater than equal to 30. But sir, in the seventh question, so we don't have any information about.
नहीं but actually they have not given the size but they are saying that just we are taking the these three only. Actually they have specified that you compute through this. So whether it is applicable the central limit theorem or not, that is immaterial. Central limit theorem is different. Means actually we are converting it into the into the normal, and it is given to you. This data belongs to the sample. That's why we are dividing by the root n. Central limit theorem state that every distribution, whatever the distribution, whether the discrete or continuous, for the large n or for the large value, right? It always tends to the normal variate.
Yes, sir.
Means in that case that it is not necessary all means that is true for the sample. For the population also it is true. Whether you take the binomial population, whether you take the geometric population, whether you take the exponential population, then also it follow the normal distribution for the large n.
Yes.
Now here we have the some more question for the tutorial sheet 8. Let x1 and x2 be the independent Poisson random variable with parameter mu1 and mu2. Let y is equal to x1 plus x2. What is the distribution of the y? Means in this question we want to convey that some of the Poisson random variables follow which distribution. So it is given to you T1 is it is given to you x1 follow the Poisson distribution with parameter mu1, x2 follow the Poisson distribution with parameter mu2, and you know that for the Poisson distribution moment generating function are e to power mu1 e to power into e to power t minus 1 e to power mu2 into e to power t minus 1. So y is what? X1 plus x2. Y x1 and x2 are given to you as independent. Then moment generating function of the random variable y is nothing. It is the product of moment generating function for the x1 and x2. Only the required conditions should be x1 and x2 should be independent. So we write the e to power mu1 into e to power t minus 1 e to power mu2 into e to power t minus 1. So that can be written as e to power mu1 plus mu2 into e to power t minus 1. And we know that moment generating function is nothing. It is the fingerprint of any distribution. Means it is as same as the means as same as the moment generating function for the Poisson distribution. So we can say m by t is the mgf of the Poisson random variable with parameter mu1 plus mu2. So you can say that sum of Poisson distribution Poisson distribution follow the Poisson distribution. That is the thing. In the second question, let x1, x2, xn with a random sample from exponential population with parameter lambda. Let y is equal to x1 plus x2 plus xn. What is the distribution of the y? Means sum of exponential distribution follow which distribution, that they are asking. If you take the sum of the exponential distribution, it is given to you xi follow the exponential distribution with parameter lambda, I is equal to 1 to n, right? And all the xi are independent, then only it is true. So we know that moment generating function for the exponential distribution is 1 minus lambda t to power minus 1. Now here we define the y is equal to x1 plus x2 plus xn. So from the moment generating function, we know that moment generating function for the y is nothing, it is the product of moment generating function of an independent variable mxit. So it will become the product of 1 upon 1 minus lambda t. That is the 1 minus lambda t to power minus 1. And from the gamma distribution, we know that moment generating function for the gamma distribution with parameter beta and alpha is the 1 minus beta t in power alpha. If gamma distribution follow the means if any random variable follow the gamma distribution with parameter beta and alpha, then moment generating function is this. So this MGF and this MGF are same. So it means we can say that now the y follow. Y is what? X1 plus x2 plus xn. X1 plus x2 plus xn follow the gamma distribution with parameter lambda and n. Means sum of the exponential distribution follow the gamma distribution with parameter lambda and n. Then in question number 3, let x1 x2
class. There's another class.
Just within the 2-3 minutes I can finish this.
Okay sir, okay, please go on.
Let x1 and x2 be the independent chi-square variable with degree of freedom 5 and 10, so that x1 plus x2 is chi-square random variable with degree of freedom 15. So the same thing, you know that chi-square is nothing, it is the special case of the gamma distribution or exponential family. So it is given to you x1 follow the chi-square distribution with degree of freedom 5, and x2 is also chi-square distribution with the degree of freedom 10. So moment generating function for the x1 will be the 1 minus 2t power minus gamma 1 by 2, that is of minus 5 by 2, and moment generating function for the x2 will be the 1 minus 2t to power minus 10 by 2. And x1 and x2 are given to you independent to each other. We define the new random variable x1 plus x2 as a y. So moment generating function for the y will be the product of the moment generating function for the x1 and x2. So just you write the value, you will get the 1 minus 2t to power minus 15 by 2. It means now this is the new degree of freedom. So here y follow the chi-square distribution with degree of freedom 15. So sum of the chi-square distribution also follow the chi-square distribution with degree of freedom is equal to sum of the degree of freedom of the independent random variables. Now last part, the random variable z square follow the chi-square distribution with a degree of freedom 1. This already we have done last to last class proof. Let x1, x2, xn be the random sample from the normal distribution with parameter mu and variance sigma square. What is the distribution of the y? Sum xi minus mu upon sigma square. So it is given to you z follow the normal distribution with parameter 0 and 1. It is the means it is the standard normal distribution. It is also given to you z square follow the chi-square distribution with degree of freedom 1. Now here we define the new random variable y as a sum I from 1 to n xi minus mu whole square upon sigma square. So it is nothing, it is what? It is the z. So it will become the z square. So the sum of the zi square, sum of zi square, and you know that zi follow the chi-square distribution with parameter with degree of freedom 1. So moment generating function for the y my t will be the product of the zi square t when all the Zi are independent to each other. So moment generating function for the chi-square distribution is what? 1 minus 2t power minus degree of freedom upon 2. So minus 1 upon 2 and whole power n. So this will become the minus 2t to power minus n by 2. So that implies that it is the moment generating function for the chi-square distribution, and moment generating function is nothing, it is the fingerprint. So you can say that y follow the chi-square distribution with degree of freedom n. So that's all for the today class. In next class we will start the new sheet. Means overall important thing is the moment generating function for the sum of the random variable is nothing, it is the product of the moment generating function if random variables are independent to each other. That is the main.
Sir, can you scroll up once to that? Sir, how did we get? So, like in the question, it is given y is summation xi minus mu by sigma square. So, like sir, here it is xi minus mu by sigma square, na? So this is not z square.
अच्छा नहीं तो जेडी
Sir, actually, I didn't follow. Like first, you said that z is a normal variable, and
some actually here we have the square. Here we have the square. In question, some printing mistake. Here we have the square in question.
okay, sir. Sir, then just
Mani
that
means
the
matlab here this is the sigma, this is square.
okay, sir. So, like just the first statement which you have given that z follows a normal distribution, sir.
हाँ.
Sir, to
हाँ.
sir, like sir, could you go a little bit below? हाँ, sir. Sir, so zi will also follow normal distribution only, na?
नहीं Zi follow the normal distribution and Zi square follow the chi-square distribution. ये तो given से चल रहे हैं ना.
Okay.
ये Z square ये.
Yeah. Okay.
Zi square. मतलब main thing here we want to convey that if y is equal to x1 plus x2 plus xn, then moment generating function for the y is the product of moment generating function for the xi t I from 1 to n when xi are independent. That formula we want to apply. From here we compute the sum of different type of the distribution. For example, some of the Bernoulli follow the binomial, some of binomial follow the binomial, some of Poisson follow the Poisson, some of exponential follow the gamma, some of normal follow the normal, some of gamma follow the gamma, some of chi-square follow the chi-square. That is the thing.
Okay, sir.
Sir, so I think I might have not recognized this. The MGF product wala rule you taught that in earlier classes, right?
No. Actually, that is I think that was covered in the lecture section. I have not taught.
Oh, okay.
I have not taught, but because I cannot taught. I haven't had so much time. I have to cover only the question. In between, if there is any theoretical requirement, then I explain just.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Sir, if possible, please upload tutorial sheets, sir. These are not available in Nalanda, sir.
Okay, just by taking after taking lunch, I will upload.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.